Hello, everyone. You are joining the South Asia Democratic Forum's podcast, and today we have Kagusthan Ariaratnam and Michael Willcock from Montreal. Kagusthan is joining us from Ottawa, and I'm here in Montreal. So today we are discussing this book, which is The Five Files, Spy Tiger, a child soldier turned double agent, which is the life story of Kagusthan Ariaratnam, who was forcibly recruited into the Liberation Tigers of Tamil Eelam. And this story is co-written with Michael Bramadat-Willcock, who is an award-winning Canadian journalist, and his work has appeared in different media outlets. And he is a student of Concordia University, currently pursuing his master's degree in journalism. So Kagusthan Ariaratnam, a former child soldier, a member of the LTTE, you have a very interesting story to tell. So let's begin with Kagusthan introducing himself to us.
Thank you, Natasha. Thank you, Michael. Thank you for having me. My name is Kagusthan Ariaratnam. I go by Stan in Canada, Murali by my family, Babu in my childhood, and O5 as a court name. And I have many aliases. Everywhere I go, I change my name. Right now, I'm being called as Stan in Ottawa by my friends. Anyways, to be short, I was 17 years old when I was forcibly recruited by the Tamil Tigers under the condition that each family must contribute one child. I was born with three younger brothers and one sister, and to protect them, I went to war. So otherwise, my younger siblings would have been taken forcibly or went through hardships. So I had to protect my family, basically. My parents gave so much gold, but they said that you guys have 5 children, one child should come. So I joined the SALT, Students Organization of Liberation Tigers, 1990, and I was volunteering with Tamil Tigers with propaganda, fundraising, backup support. Like when camp raid happens, we had to go and build trenches, supply food, ammunitions, and bring the bodies out of the battle zone and all that. That is one of the part of the SALT members. As such, one of the battle I participated was the Elephant Pass raid, which is called Ahaya Hadal Veli Samar. In translated in English, Air, Sea, Land Operation of the Tamil Tigers court named that operation. And they rounded up the camp and attacking the Sri Lanka military base. During this time, with myself, 19 other students were taken from SALT members. All the SALT members were taken to the battlefield, and we are digging trenches and taking out the dead bodies out of the battle zone from the front defense line. And we were also supplying food and ammunition to the front line with the white shirts and white pants as students. So during this time, the helicopter of the Sri Lankan Air Force zero in and start firing on us because we didn't have camouflage or anything, and it was very visible with the white uniform. So on the spot, there were 2 LTTE cadets who were killed because of the helicopter gunship attack, and 2 of our students got killed, and we ran away and hid in the bushes. The Tamil Tigers rounded us up and started attacking us. Why did you come here with your white collar school uniform? So there was a battle. There was a battle going on. Within the battle, there was a quarrel between the students and the Tamil Tiger members, even younger than us. Maybe they might be 15, 14-year-old boys with a uniform and guns, and we were 17, 18-year-old students. Eventually, they rounded us up. Colonel Banu, the military commander of Jaffna district, came to the scene, and he said that we have no right to attack our soldiers and you have to be punished. And all the rest of the students, like 17, and some of them had small injuries, put on a truck and with the dead bodies, and they took us to Chavacheri camp. From there, they transferred to Maniyam Thotam, another camp from Jaffna suburb. In the Maniyam Thotam, in that camp, there was a dark underground bunker, like a cement-built bunker, L-shaped, and they put us in the bunker and they closed down everything and put a camouflage, and we were living in the dark underground bunker for 5 days. This is a trauma that I still suffering and flashback and not a pleasant memory. And when I even talk, I am getting nervous about this. So this is a long way gone. That's how I was recruited. After 5 days in living in the underground bunker, they took us out and recruited us directly from the bunker, saying that if you want to die, you can die in the bunker or you can join as a Tamil Tiger members. So we didn't give any other choice. We can report to our families, we can talk. It's like a totalitarian, authoritarian ideology, fascist, terrorist, Nazist ideologies. So we have no say and we had to join.
Thank you so much for sharing that experience. And I totally understand the kind of psychological trauma that you underwent, particularly given that this experience is something that can cause you distress when you recount it now. I want to ask you another question about the LTTE training, the kind of training that you underwent, because when I wrote the review, I found out that there is LTTC Tigers Maritime Academy. So the Tigers were actually, there was an intellectual force within the Tigers who were highly educated, and there were foot soldiers. Little bit more interested in learning more about the composition and the education that went into building a tiger.
Well, the Tigers had 7 wings: military wing, political wing, intelligence wing, sea tiger wing, woman tiger wing, financial wing, and procurement wing at that time. Under the military wing, the old district commands are coming, and Sea Tiger is commanded by Colonel Susai. It's all Sea Tiger operation, Sea Tiger Maritime Academy, Maritime School, Dockyard, Sea Tiger Intelligence, Sea Tiger Women Division, and everything. Under intelligence wing, there are 2 sections of the intelligence wing. One is national intelligence, one is military intelligence. National intelligence was headed by Patu Aman. The military intelligence was headed by Dinesh Master at that time when I was there. And the female division wing was headed by Vidusha when I was there. And the finance wing was headed by Ranjitapa. And then the procurement wing was headed by KP Kumaran. So there are 7 wings, and the political wing was headed by Mataya and Yogi at that time. So the LTT is not a politically inclined organization. They are military organization more than a political wing. That was their weakness, that they suffered heavy blow at the end of the conflict because they are not politically strong. They are militant ideology. For an example, the LTT put one card, Taliban, as a non-violent Gandhi's ideology of non-violent campaign, passed unto death. But LTT used 300 to 400 black tigers as a suicide bombers. So I think the LTT's fatal mistake and miscalculation is that they used black tigers overly than the politically involving cadres, educating political alternatives, sending people to learn about foreign federal setup or foreign governance and abroad. They send people abroad to learn flying schools, military training, and underwater demolition teams, intelligence training. They send people secretly out of Sri Lanka and they went and learned and they came back as a flying pilots and underwater demolition techniques and all that. But they didn't send people to study politics outside the Sri Lanka. So that's why I'm saying that LTT is not a politically not inclined organization. They are military mindset of Mr. Velupurai Prabharan is the greatest liability for LTT at the end of the day. So anyways, coming back to your question about the training, every cadre should go through 3-month basic military training. That is the must. That is the basic military training. Every cadre who join go through 3-month basic military training, which includes regular physical training, weapons training, ambush training, explosive training, and booby traps, patrolling and camp raids, camouflage, military tactics, military theories like Sun Tzu, Jihad, and Mao Zedong, and Napoleon Bonaparte, Subhash Chandra Bose, all that. They study everything in great details, and they watch Stalingrad and Leningrad and Six-Day War in Golden Height. They watch movies from Western Hollywood movies and British movies Indian movies, war movies adapted into Tamil, dubbed into Tamil, and cut out the sex scenes to not the carders to focus on only war. The LTT's motto is make war, not love. Make war. So they are focused very much into you are born to die. So you might as well die as martyr rather than a coward. So they say you are born to die. So you might as well die for our cause. So that is the basic training. After basic training, another step is to the military wing quarters is the 6 month advanced military training. Advanced military training includes heavy weapons like 22 millimeter Colicon cannon gun, 12.55 50 caliber machine guns, aircraft gun 14.5 millimeter aircraft anti-aircraft guns, anti-aircraft missiles like SAM 7 Stinger missiles training. They specifically pick people to specialize in each guns like GPMG machine group, RPG group, low group. Low means the light anti-tank weapon group, and SAM 7 anti-aircraft guns group like a SAM 7. They have a groups like anti-tank group, anti-aircraft group, anti naval group like Sea Tigers have a group how to attack Sri Lanka Navy. So they specialize in each groups are specialized in different weapons. Like Olican cannon gun will be given to Sea Tiger attack group to counter the Sri Lanka Navy. And then there's an academy like Special Officers Training Academy. Then after that 6 month basic military, advanced military training, then they choose people to go to officers training. It's like a cadet officers, like they pick you, hand pick you to go to officers cadet training. That was given to people who can read, write, and speak Tamil and English. So they learn the military doctrine of the world and the history of Sri Lankan struggle and military academic and Sea Tiger academic, Air Force academic. So there's also divisions within the officers training that some people will be coming explosive experts, expert in explosives. Some people will coming experts in sea maritime admiralship specialists, and some people will be coming anti-aircraft specialists and pilots of the LTT. So they have like an air component that was later evolved. The LTT start building the Air Force since early 90s, but they came into being in 2001, 2002, they started flying. So this is the special officers training that even after that, the specialized training, they will send to each wings, like Sea Tigers wing, intelligence wing, women's wing, and procurement wing, political wing, and people will be allocated to the different wings. Then they get special training. For example, I became a spy tiger. LTT's intelligence wing is called Spy Tiger Wing or the Intelligence Wing. So I was chosen to be a military office before I went into Spy Tiger Military Intelligence Wing. I was sent to military office, LTT's military office, which teaches you the Jane's naval aircraft catalogs, anti-tank battle catalogs, fighter aircraft catalogs, military balance books. So there's a military office to excel your knowledge so that you can teach other cadres who can't read or write to how to fight. For an example, when I was in the military office, the Eastern District Battle Wing cadres will come with under Karuna. These people can't even speak Tamil. They can't speak Tamil properly. They can read Tamil properly. They can read anything. So we have to make a picture of a gun, RPG gun, RPG rocket, bullets, starting from bullets, grenades, and guns and machine guns, everything. We will show a picture and we will read them. This is the trigger, this is the barrel, this is the magazine, this is the butt. So we had to show them physically a gun, explaining a gun, and also by pictures. This is how you do it, this is how you aim it, this is how you bull it, how to fire a bull. And you have to teach other cadres who cannot comprehend the military academic skills, the military science.
Okay.
So I was learning military science in military office. After I excelled that, I went into the spy tiger and became intelligence wing cadre in the military intelligence. Even after that, 1 year training for the intelligence. So LTTE special emphasize on training the cadres. They say fire 100 bullets on training, but only fire 1 bullet on the battlefield. They excel their training is very much emphasis is on the training because they believe that a well-trained cadre is worth more than some bunch of criminals or thugs or anything. LTT is well disciplined, well trained, well motivated, one of the well motivated, innovative rebels in the world. LTT is the only group to have Army, Navy, Air Force, intelligence wing, underwater demolition team, long range reconnaissance patrol team. For an example, the long range reconnaissance patrol team was LTT established in 1990, but the Sri Lankan army only came into being in 2000. So LTT established the long-range reconnaissance team 10 years before Sri Lankan army came up with the deep penetration unit. Sri Lankan Navy, to date, I don't know if they have an underwater demolition team. They specialized in... So what I'm trying to say is the necessity is the mother of invention. Because they need to excel, they were banned from acquiring everything. They set up procurement wing. He is at MLST, supply from maritime, from the EZ boundary to the LTT's local waters. They set up a unit for that. Sea pigeons, which is the LTT floating warehouses. They had a setup for that. So everything was taken care of like very organized, well prepared, well researched manner.
I have another question because I
Yes.
don't mean to cut you off right in the middle of the of your detailed explanation. I have more questions for Michael Bramadat-Willcock, who was co-writing this book with you, because you have this education that you received through your training about battleships, about guns, military doctrine and warfare, whereas Michael comes from a journalism background, and when he met you for the first time, obviously it is a fascinating, gripping story, but there must have been an extraordinary amount of research on the side of the journalist to piece this story together, because on the one side he has to understand your story and the experiences that you went through. So can you intervene and tell us a little bit about how and what your role was in writing this book? How was the process of writing and publishing?
Okay, so I guess the first, so it was just talking with him, getting the full story and then fitting it into a chronology. As far as fact checking, he has a lot of documents going all the way back with confirmed communications with people. Elements that are purely from memory, obviously, can't really be fact checked, like when he's talking about his own experiences, but the events can be. So, there's reference points for all the facts that are mentioned in the story. And, the process was just basically interviewing him, setting out the narrative, putting it together into something that flowed.
That's a good explanation, but what about the publication part? Because when I first interacted with you, I wrote the book review. We found out that this was self-published on Amazon when there were interests by other publishers, but they wanted certain bits of this edited out. So how did you navigate those problems and finally got this published?
Right. Okay. So as far as getting the book published, the self-publishing was Kagusthan's initiative, I would say. He went through a book publishing, self-publishing company in the United States that helped with the layout and everything like that. As far as timing, the timing was important because of political events in Sri Lanka. We wanted the book out before a certain amount of time. And I believe that it was also to do with authorship and what gets to be included and where the focus gets to go, right? So in the end, before we self-published, I did a big rewrite because it had been through several iterations. A lot of people had looked over it. So making it consistent and making the flow work and have a consistent voice throughout the throughout the narrative was important.
Michael, let's also talk about mental health. Murali, I'd also like for you to join this discussion because you are telling your story to Michael, but your story is full of trauma and experiences that shock you even today. It has the potential to affect you and your life, and you're telling this to Michael. And Michael, there is just no way that you can remain unaffected when you listen to these harrowing accounts of his experiences. So, in the process of interviews, how did you navigate issues with Kagusthan, and how did Kagusthan, when you narrate your experiences to him, to Michael, what kind of mechanisms did you have in order to make sure that there was a smooth process in getting this book out?
Okay, yeah, so like immersion definitely affects perspective, right? So writing in the first person creates kind of like a closeness to the subject, right? So I'm writing in the first person from Murali's perspective. This is his words, but I'm putting them together and into writing, and it makes the narrative very vivid. Like it helps with the narrative because you're emotionally invested, but at the same time, there's definitely an impact to hearing people talk about such difficult things. You know, that's something that journalists have to deal with in all stories that they cover, whether it be in a journalistic sense or in the sense here of helping someone bring his story to the public. But yeah, like it definitely creates like a certain amount. You have to take a step back sometimes, separate yourself from being immersed in it, like the way you would feel if you were watching a scary movie or a scene that brings you into a place, right? Like, so him recounting being stuck in a bunker, you know, torture and all of those other terrible things that he went through is definitely not something that I can draw from in my experience, but it's definitely also something that you need to manage emotionally as you work through it.
Murali, do you have anything to say too?
Well, Michael's continued support and the work he put, we recorded more than 100 hours of audio recording. I still have them with me. And when we were talking, and Michael, sometimes Michael is shocked. Michael cannot ask the next question. And at some point, Michael even was crying while we were recording. It is foremost among many to be born in Canada that the experience that I had brought to Canada, like a youngster like Michael, I learned from Michael's mother. Michael's mother told me Michael is under distress because of writing this book, and it affected him mentally. Michael's mother told me. Michael never told me that. Dawn Bramadat. She told me before she passed away, we sit down and talked about it, and she told me Michael went through a lot, and it's an explosive story you guys should publish. And she tried to help us too, but we went through internationalists and your our press and many publishers. They say you have to rewrite it, you have to remove this, you have to remove that. This is going to be the defamation lawsuit for many people and stuff like that. So one of the reasons why we chose to self-publish is that we don't want to be editorially omitted our key events in the book. You know, people were asking, cut that, cut this, remove that, remove this. I want my story to be heard by the whole world community. What is the child went through in Sri Lanka? You know, I don't want the editorial team taking advantage of commercial purposes and cut out my book and say that, oh, this is the piece that you're going to publish. At one point in time, we were in touch with top literary agent, Morty Mint. He was the head of Penguins, and in England and US, he was head of Penguin. And he was trying to publish. At the end of the days, before he passed away, he told me you have to self-publish because nobody will publish the manuscript as it is if you are not ready to edit it and omit all these events. So we had no choice but to self-publish. One thing. The second thing is that we were waiting and waiting and waiting, and the time came right in 2024 presidential election. We coincide the publication with that election. You know, it's like a small little contribution to the Sri Lanka's political landscape to affect that in political landscape in Sri Lanka.
Yeah, I guess I would add to that in the process of looking for a publisher, you know, you come across all sorts of different things. and what they think sells versus what they think doesn't sell. They're very commercial minded. Some people thought that Sri Lanka wasn't interesting enough. Some people told us that, from one publisher, got back and said that if the book had been about the Middle East, if it had been about Israel Palestine, the same story but about a different conflict that had more eyeballs, then it would have been an obvious yes. But because nobody knows about Sri Lanka, then they didn't think it would sell. So there was that aspect as well that had to be navigated. And in the end, I think that what we ended up publishing was the truest way of telling the story, and it has gotten really good readership despite some of the feedback we got.
I found this book to be among one of the best books written on the life of a child soldier, because when I think of Murali at 17, who was doing his A levels, just after the O levels, doing A levels with dreams that he wanted to go to a university to be an engineer. He was studying what maths, physics, and chemistry at that time, and he wanted to go and do a course in engineering, but ended up being a military strategist, like being learned in strategic and defense affairs. It could have been a completely different life had it not been for the LTTE. But at the end of the day, you have a powerful story to tell, and that story is about child soldiers, how they were recruited against their will by not only by the LTT, but let's also talk about the Directorate of Military Intelligence and the Sri Lankan Armed Forces, how they treated you. One thing that I found in this book very interesting was prisoners of war, how when you went into the lion's den, you were beaten every day, every night. Can you tell us a bit about the torture that you underwent during that period, if it's not too much of a trouble for you?
No, it's okay. Well, I would say that compared to other cadres who were captured or arrested, I was treated well. But still, I was in the nights in the military police jail cell. So they will treat me like any other detainee they have. For them, everybody is LTT cadres. But when I go to in the morning, they will take me to the officers, and the officers listen to my story and the information they take from me and the interrogation going on, and then came to realize that this guy is a very good asset for us and we had to protect him, you know. So they respected me. They took me to the office mess and I sit with them. Then I had a good lunch and I'll go back to the jail in the night and they will beat me up. The soldiers, non-commissioned officers and the commissioned officers. Non-commissioned officers are like corporal, sergeant, sergeant major. These guys are less educated and they're warriors. On the contrary, the officers, they are well educated. They went to universities and educated people, and they're commissioned officers. Right after university, they were recruited, like starting from second lieutenant, captain, major. These officers treated me well because I was speaking in English and I was giving the information. They were interrogating me, they're interviewing me. Then generals came, commanders came, naval officers, Air Force officers, military intelligence officers. So they treated me well. When I was initially, when I was recruited, started interrogated, they didn't even believe what I was saying is truth or this guy is bluffing. They didn't, they were shocked that this little boy had this much information. So they decided to put me truth serum in the Sri Lanka's Directorate of Military Intelligence location in Kalani safe house that I was kept and interrogated. They started injecting me injections to tell the truth, or they want to listen my mind. Or at after a couple of months later, I asked Brigadier Rishisaki, why did you put me through this torture of my mind is already zombie and I lost my consciousness? And he said that you are giving so much information, we couldn't believe what to believe. So we want to know whether you are making this up or we want to know whether it is truth or not. So as you know, I was actually sent to surrender. I was sent to infiltrate the military and either become a suicide bomber or infiltrate the military and give them information. So I don't know what I told them in the 2 weeks. They continuously injecting me and then interrogating me. But I was putting my heart on the table and help them obliterate LTT once and for all so that I can save my family. Because I knew the minute I let my family go, I lose everything. For me, my family is my motivation everywhere I was. Within the LTT, I was thinking about my family. Within the military, I was thinking about my family. Because for me, it's my mother and my parents and my siblings are the life of my, uh, love of my life. Like I grew up with my brothers playing cricket and playing tennis and all that. So I lost my brothers all of a sudden, and I was depressed. My psychiatrist even says that your mental illness started when you were recruited in 17 years old. So I miss my family. So it's in my constant mind that I had to save my family for whatever course it takes. So I went through this torture and the beatings with the LTT training, military, everything, and I finally saved my family. My family now live in Canada, so I'm privileged to be in this country. And thank to God that my siblings and my parents came to this country, and I'm Canadian now. The Canada had enough trust in me, enough faith in me to give me Canadian citizenship, whereas LTT cooks, LTT mechanics, LTT cleaners were deported, whereas an LTT intelligence wing cadre, in top of that, a suicide bomber came to be a Canadian and living in Canada with the family. That is the biggest achievement. And my father called me when I sponsored my father, and he arrived in Montreal on the airport. He told me, "You are a bloody hero." So that is what in return, I got my family back in a peaceful country. That is the greatest achievement I ever have done.
Murali brought up the torture and the truth serum experience, and that made me think a little bit about fact checking that you mentioned. Because you hear about truth serum, or you see it in the movies, and you think, well, is this real? Like, this is crazy. So then you look it up and you fact check it, and they were experimenting with psychotropic drugs on people in this kind of environment. Whether or not it worked as a truth serum, like in the movies, versus you know a psychotropic effect that would make people speak more freely, and then under the impression that they were being given something that would force them to tell the truth, right? So, like, I don't know if you want to include this or not, but that was an interesting fact-checking thing. At first your reaction is like, this can't be real. Then you look it up and you're like, well, they actually did experiment on people with what they thought was truth serum.
And because of this truth serum that I have a psychosis now, I'm taking, because when I came here in 2001, I was first diagnosed with PTSD and bipolar, and every psychiatrist I saw, they came up with different diagnoses. Because of my background, somebody said it's a depression, somebody said bipolar, somebody said PTSD, and somebody said it's a psychosis, So within 2003, 2004, I became a mentally ill, handicapped person. It's the effect of that truth serum that put into my mind. When I came to Canada, I had a cultural shock that I couldn't integrate right away. It took me like more than 25, 30 years to integrate into Canadian society, to appreciate what I have and what I lost. What is to have a family and have children and live a life. It's more hard for me to adapt. Suddenly coming from a child soldier to jump into a democratic, well-developed society, it is a shock for me. So that's how I was. Right away, I reacted to the mental health. And I believe that because of the truth serum they put in me, I had that effect when I came here.
Yeah, I mean, who knows, right? Like, it's a cocktail. Like, what I read about it, or what they used to, what they call truth serum, was it's a toxic cocktail of psychotropic drugs, right? So who knows what kind of effect they actually had on you, and all the other stuff that you went through as well, compounding that.
Thank you so much, Murali, for sharing those information with us. One of the things that I want our readers, people watching us, is to reflect on the forcible conscription of child soldiers around the world by non-state actors. How is an absolute war crime, and it's in international criminal law. conscription of child soldiers is banned, and we have to think about how, as researchers, as journalists, and a former child soldier that we have today, the work that we can do in order to educate people with awareness and prevent the conscription of child soldiers around the world. So this is a powerful story which has the potential to add and contribute to the literature, the existing literature on conscription of child soldiers. So Kagusthan, Murali, and Michael, do you have any last things to say? I'd like it if you could limit it to like 2 or 3 sentences. So let's go with Murali first.
I would like to thank Michael, and I sometimes took it for granted, but Michael put up with me for many things. I'm not an ordinary person. I have mental illness. I took everything on Michael. I displaced my anger and frustration on Michael. Michael came back to me. Michael understood me, why I am acting in that way. So I have immense respect for Michael. And we have finally published a book. In the beginning, when we were running around between publishers, people told me that this book is garbage and put it in the garbage and rewrite it. But Michael did a rewriting that is, now people say that this book should be in a classroom for universities. So, and we offered even one of the opportunity to publish with University of Ottawa, but it didn't work out for us because of differences. I apologize to Michael at this juncture that I treated him very badly at times, and we had our differences, and mainly because of my mental health, I was taught to try and trust no one and deceive everyone, and I played that on Michael. That's not fair for Michael. I took it for granted, man. Thank you for being with me and sharing my journey with me, and we will get a traditional publisher to pick it up.
Well, I really appreciate that, Murali. Thank you. And I definitely think that it's important that people like him get to have their stories told, and that process can be difficult, but it pays off. It's worth it. And hopefully more people will be able to bring forth stories like that. You talk about how we could, how this could be prevented in the future. Well, I don't know, but I don't know the answer to that, but I definitely know the people who've been through this kind of thing need to be heard. And that was kind of how I saw my role here.
Thank you, Michael.
Thank you so much, Murali and Michael, for joining me today. It took a lot of effort to put this together, and I'm happy that we finally did it. And this is actually a story that is worth told, and I'm very happy to be a very small part of this narrative. And let's keep continuing this conversation. We have a lot more work to do in the future, the three of us, and of course with the South Asia Democratic Forum. Thank you.
And thank you for you to write the review. That you wrote an awesome review that none others wrote. It's a unique and very different look at my book. Thank you so much.
Yeah, you definitely picked up on some things that other reviewers didn't.
Yeah.
It was
It's a totally different kind of review.
It's a lot of experiences which are psychologically traumatizing, and sharing that through a book and even through podcasts. In the future, you will be a motivational speaker. You will be doing events with people. I hope that you get these opportunities, Murali and Michael too, to share and talk more about this, which I think would, in the long term, help you process the events to educate, build awareness. I think that sort of initiative is important. Not only will it heal you, but it will educate others. And that journey is going to be a very interesting and a fulfilling journey for you, and I'm happy to be part of it. So thank you so much for joining the South Asia Democratic Forum's podcast.
Thank you.
Thanks.